Greetings. In this video we're going to cover tables. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so all tables really are used for is to display information in kind of a formatted, easy to read way. Let's say for example I want to put the results of a triathlon online. Well, I might have the name of the runner, what position they came in, what their time was, that kind of stuff. Okay? What a table does is it allows me an easy way to format and place this content in an easy to read format. So let's go ahead and start looking at some table syntax. Alright, so here's how tables work. First I'm going to go ahead and create a new document. I'm going to call it Table 1. Alright, so here's the basic syntax for a table. You have an opening and closing table tag, and then you have what's called a table row, or the TR tag. It's an open tag, and then you also have a close tag. Inside the table row, you have what are called table data, or TD tags. This is basically a cell if you had a spreadsheet. Okay. Inside of these TD tags, between the open and closing tag, then you put in your content. So let's say, for example, I have, I'm doing a good example of a triathlon. Okay, then I would have whoever came in first. Then I'd have another cell that might have their name, and then finally I might have a third cell that would have their time. Okay, so what I'll see is when I go and I render this table, I'll actually see a few different things here, a few different rows, a few different cells once I populate this that have who came in first, second, and third, their name, and then their time. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and copy this entire row and paste it a couple of times, and then just change the first cell and then the second and third cell. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and run my page, and here's what you'll see. Now this is the most basic table you'll have. There's no formatting, there aren't any borders, there are no headings, anything like that yet. It's just a simple, very simple table. Okay. Now to add a border around this table, all I have to do is go into the opening table tag and type in border equal sign, open quote, however many pixels I want this border to be, which in this case I'm just going to put a real thin border around, so I'm going to hit 1 and then a close quote. Okay. And now what you'll see is that I have 3 rows with 3 cells each. Row 1, row 2, row 3, cell 1, cell 2, cell 3. And then there's content within each of these rows. Okay. Now, again, you want to, if you make a table and you don't have any border around it, that's the default setting. Now you can use CSS to create a border around a table, which we'll actually do later on, but the simplest syntax for setting up a border around a table is just to type in the border attribute right here inside of the opening table tag. Now, let's say I want to create what are called table headers. And right now, when I look at this table, there's nothing here to indicate what this is. So this is kind of a problem because this table doesn't really mean anything at this point. I see that there's a 1, 2, 3, Bob, Rod, and Todd, and then some time. So that doesn't mean anything to me if I don't know what this page is. So what I can do is, or table is, so what I can do is I can add in what's called a table header. So I'm going to create a new row up at the very top, and then there's a new tag called th, and my first header would be position, and then you do a closing th tag, and then my second heading would be name, and then again a closing th tag, and then another opening th tag, and then finally I'm going to have my time. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and render my code again, and you'll see that I have a position, name, and time up at the above the data. Okay. Now I still have a little bit of issues here with this table because I have position, name, and time, but I don't have anything that tells me what's going on as far as what is this. I see position, name, and time, and I see a few entries, but this doesn't really mean anything to me. Well, I can add what's called a caption at the very top of the table, and let me show you how to do that real quick. Alright, let's go ahead and use what's called the caption tag. Okay. So right above this first row, you type in caption, it's a caption tag, and then whatever you want to call this table. So I'm going to call this triathlon results. And then you type in a closing caption tag. Now go ahead and render your page again, and you'll see at the very top I have a caption called triathlon results. Now, one of the things about the caption tag is that it's not completely necessary. Let's say, for example, I want to just have a H3 size heading, or H4 size heading above the table, and I want to call this triathlon results. And I'm going to actually go ahead and comment out this caption tag real quick so I don't get confused. Alright, and then if I want to have this triathlon results heading centered, then I would just format that with CSS. Okay. Which, you know, you'd have to do that within the table there. But for now, what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and make it simple and leave the caption in here. Alright, so that's a real basic table for now. They just have a table called triathlon results, and it has position, name, and time, and some entries there. Okay. Now, one of the things that I'm kind of looking at this table, and I've noticed that, wow, it's kind of hard to read the position, name, and time, and Bob, Rod, and Todd, and all this. You know, the spacing and the padding doesn't look right. So here's something you can do to change your spacing and your padding inside of a table. So let's say we want a little bit more cell padding. Okay? All you have to do in your opening table tag here is to type in after that border attribute cell padding equal sign and then however many pixels you want. Let's say I want 5 pixels. Okay? So it's cell padding equals 5. And now what you'll see is inside the cell you have between the content in the cell and the cell wall here, you have a little bit more padding. Okay? Let me blow this up a little bit, up to 10 pixels, to show you the difference. Okay? This is with 5 pixels of padding. Here's with 10 pixels of padding. Again, when you're formatting this, later on you're going to use CSS, but for right now, if we're formatting using HTML, you'll just make that change. Okay? Let's go ahead and set this back to 5. Okay? So there's some cell padding. Now another thing that you can do is what's called cell spacing. Okay? If I want to set some space between the cells themselves, then I can do this. I can type in cell spacing. Again, it's just another attribute for in the table tag. And I'm going to set this to 5 pixels. Now what you'll see is that the cells themselves don't have any spacing in between. Okay. Now when I click refresh, you'll see that now I have 5 pixels in between each cell. Okay. If I want to get rid of cell spacing completely, then I just take cell spacing is 0, and that removes any space. By default, you have 1 pixel, I believe. Okay. All right. Now, one of the other things that you can do with tables is this. You can have what are called spans in between rows, in between columns. So let's say I wanted to have a table that has multiple spans across multiple cells. Let me show you an example of that here. So if I want spans that are more than one column, I'm going to create another file here. This is how you do it. So let's say I want to make a table that has a cell that spans 2 columns. So I'm going to go ahead and I've just copied my code over from my previous example, and I'm going to paste some of it here. I'm stripping most of the stuff out. Alright, so I have a table, and I'm going to go ahead and put in a new row, and then I'm going to put in a new table heading. And this table heading is going to span 2 columns, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in somebody's phone number, their name and their phone number. This is very similar to what you see in your sample code for the HTML tables on W3 Schools. Actually, it's pretty much the same thing. Okay. So I have a new table heading called phone, and then what I need to do is I need to give this table heading a column span, or col span, C-O-L, of 2. So it'll span 2 columns. Okay. And then on the next row, I have 2 cells. First one, I'm just going to say Todd, and then the second one, it's going to say 308-555-5555. It's not my actual phone number, please don't call that. Okay, so here's what we should see. If I launch my file and view it, you'll see that I have a heading across the top that spans 2 columns. It's automatically centered, called phone, and then I have my name, and then I have my phone number. Okay. If I wanted to add in a second or a third cell, then what you'll see is this heading only spans 2 cells or 2 columns, and if I want to fix that, say for example, okay, I have my primary phone number and my secondary phone number, then you would just do a call span here in this opening th tag to 3. Okay, but we'll just take it back to 2. Alright, now let's say I want to do a row span. I'm just creating a new file. This is how you do a row span. Now let's say I have a cell that spans 2 rows. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just create a new table, and on my first row I'm going to put in a table heading for that spans 2 rows, so it's called row span. And I'm going to put in a couple things here. Actually, you know what? On that first heading, on that first row, I'm going to type in a table heading instead, without a row span. We'll do it here in just a second. So for the first one, I'm just going to type in first name, and then in the second column in that first row, I'm just going to have some data. And the second row, here's where I'm going to do my row span. I'm going to do a row span, a table heading, a row span of 2, and I'm just going to say phone, and then the second column will have a phone number. And then on my third row, I'll throw in another phone number. Alright. Now let's go render this. Okay. So here's what I have. I have 3 rows. Okay. I have in my first row, I just have a table header. Basically, it's making the text bold. That's what I use that for. It has my first name. The second cell says, the second column says Todd. And then in my second row, I have a heading that spans 2 rows. So you'll see that it's centered in the middle, takes up 2 rows, only 1 column, and then 2 cells here that just have phone numbers in them. Okay? It's probably about the simplest that you can get with spans. Alright, the last thing that I wanted to show you was using tags inside of a table. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new file, and I'm going to save this one as tags inside table. So inside of a table, you can pretty much display most tags. Now we haven't gone over lists yet, but I'll just kind of show you what I'm talking about here real quick. So let's say I wanted to type in a new table, okay? And I want to show you some tags that we can put in here. So inside of a row, I can put in a paragraph. So let's say, for example, I wanted to create a new column and wanted to put in a couple of paragraphs in here. This is something that I can do. Format this a little bit, indent it properly. Okay. Okay, see I'm creating 2 paragraphs here. Okay. Let me go ahead and run this file. And you'll see that I have a row. It has 2 columns, and I have 2 paragraphs. Okay, or 1 column, sorry, and 2 paragraphs in their side there. So that's just basically putting a tag inside that table. I can even put a table inside of a table if I wanted to. There's all kinds of different things you can do. What I would do is I would take a look at that W3 Schools tutorial on HTML tables, and then click on underneath the more examples section, you can see that using tags inside of a table. Again, there's all kinds of stuff you can use. Normally, when we're building tables and using HTML, we're not going to really mess with putting a bunch of different tags inside those tables. We're going to be pretty straightforward in what we're presenting. If you want to get fancy and start using tables for things, you'll end up using CSS instead for a lot of formatting things. Alright, so that's pretty much it for tables. As always, if you have any questions, just shoot me an email and I'll get right back to you. Thanks for watching.